It'd be so funny if we do that.
You are confusing me when you do that.
I know. That's why it's so funny.
All right, let's do it for real.
Okay.
All right, welcome back to the show. I'm Mike.
I'm Maggie.
And this is Friends on Fire. No,
that was good.
It was good, but I think it's so hokey when we do it together.
Okay, well, just so you know, you're going to have to include that messed up one in the thing because it's funny.
Okay, we'll talk about it. All right, so this is Friends on Fire. It's our second episode ever, and
should we clarify that we're not physically on fire? This is fire as in financial independence, retire early.
I thought it was fire like NBA Jam. They're on fire. Is that not what we were talking about?
No, we do plan on doing some episodes around the fire pit, and that will be a real fire. That would be fire on fire.
Yes, and maybe Friends on Fireball, where we just take shots every 5 minutes.
That would be a good talk about.
I feel like there's a lot of potential.
There's a lot of fire themes we can work with here.
Yeah. For
what it's worth, every social media account that I tried to get for Friends on Fire was combinations of two friends that are I'm on fire. I don't know.
What does that mean? Why are you doing air quotes?
I don't know. But it was just two teenagers, and it's they made an Instagram account together and they called it Friends on Fire, just they're on fire in life, sort of. And I just was and they'd have 12 followers, and I'm really? Could I have that handle? Because I could use it.
Can we buy it from them?
For our exciting pocket. We could try, but I feel they're going to try to they're going to smell that we're adults with money, and they're going to be suckers.
Yeah.
I'm not paying $300 for a Friends on Fire Instagram handle.
That's true. I don't want to spend more than $5 for it.
Yeah.
All right. So for our second episode, I think it would be interesting to talk about why friends don't talk about money. Because, we discussed all the benefits in the first episode about how we became friends talking about money and why it's beneficial and why it can be fun. But for most people, this is a topic that never comes up, that's avoided at all costs. And there's just a lot of different reasons for it.
What sort of reasons? I'm just kidding. I was trying to throw it back at you.
I'm trying to give you a turn.
Yeah, no, thanks. Yeah, I was thinking when we were talking about this question on kind of why don't people talk about money more, and trying to think about why. One thing is we are going to interview a lot of different people we know over time. And so we'll actually get some real life answers from other people instead of us guessing why people aren't talking about money. But I have a few theories and just sort of observations from my friends and kind of the conversations we have, and why I would guess people aren't talking about money more. One is I just think people didn't grow up talking about money. So it's not a normal topic. So there's a lot of families where if you didn't grow up talking about your feelings and other things, you don't grow up to as an adult and then start, being really emotive all of a sudden.
Let me guess. You grew up talking about your feelings.
No, actually, we did not speak about feelings in my household.
I am shocked by this.
Well, so maybe my reference was not right then, that just because you didn't grow up that way, it doesn't mean you. I think I went a whole 180 because I do talk about my feelings a lot. But so no, maybe feelings were not discussed in my household.
Maybe it applies to most people, but there could be exceptions like you.
There could be some people who, buck the trend. So yeah, I think a lot of people just don't talk about it growing up. I think my parents talked about it some, not as consciously as I think your parents did, because they had, some specific goals to it. But I knew at times when we were struggling versus when we had more money. So it certainly wasn't a taboo topic growing up. But back to the point, I think people just didn't grow up in it being a topic that people talked about. And I think the opposite, many people actually thought it was rude to talk about money. I don't know if rude's the right word, but just that it was sort of a uncouth topic to bring up and that you don't talk about that. But I kind of think the opposite. And the other thing, just another observation, and then I want to hear your, actually, let's jump over. Why do you think people don't talk about money before I get off on a tangent on my observation?
I think your observation's pretty interesting because, and I'm wondering if maybe it has to do with the level of income and resources that you and your community grew up with. Maybe it's more common for people who earn a lot of money or spend a lot of money to talk about it more frequently. I don't know.
You think super wealthy people probably talk about money? I don't think they talk about money. I think they talk about all the crap they have.
They talk about spending.
They talk about spending money. I don't think they talk about how much they are in debt or how much they how much is being financed versus like what's their net worth, what's their debt to, income ratio, etc. That'd just be my guess, but
no, I think you're right. I also think there's this weird dynamic where people compare their level of resources to like their personal worth and their success. And so if you have money, if you're spending money, it means you're more quote unquote successful. And even though like borrowing money and finding creative ways to go spend money or to give the appearance of spending money is very easy, like people use the expenditure as a way to communicate their social status and their success. And so introducing or inviting an opportunity to like dig into that and find out how true it is, I think is something people want to avoid as much as possible.
I agree. I had a really good thought I was going to share, and then I totally lost my train of thought.
Yeah. This is going to be a recurring theme on this show. So people equate their personal success to their financial success and how much value they provide to society. And so I don't think people really want to dig into that. People like quick reads. So if you see somebody driving around in a nice car, you think they are successful. It means they're a good person. It means that they are providing value to society. And I mean, none of that's really true, but I think that's one of the things that nobody really wants to uncover. Yeah.
So a couple thoughts back. I remembered my train of thought for what it's worth. I'm starting to take some notes so I don't lose it.
All right.
I want to say this is a quote from the Mad Fientist. I hope I don't mess up who I give credit to this for, but it was from the movie Playing with Fire. And he makes a comment that he would rather be rich than look rich. And I agree. I have a very similar philosophy in life of like, when I actually see someone like driving around in a Mercedes, particularly when it's someone I know that I have a general idea of like how much money they make or their general lifestyle. I mean, I may not know everything, but I have a general idea of their like socioeconomic status. I always think about that. And I think like this, I don't even mean this to sound as judgmental as it may sound, but I almost like in a way, either that car actually is really important to them and it might be like their priority and they don't spend money on other things as a result, which I don't always believe is the case. But I just think like that person is like going in debt to have that car in many cases. Like I certainly will pull into the parking deck at work and I'll see some of the cars, not everybody, but some of the cars that people pull up in. And many of those people, like, I know how much money they make. And like they can't be affording that car without it being on a payment plan, on a lease. Maybe somebody else is paying for it for them or whatever. But like it's likely beyond their means based on what their salary is. This is a topic that's so difficult to talk about. You know what I mean? Like it sounds really judgmental.
Well, I think this is part of the exploration, Maggie. We need to talk about these things. That's the point of the podcast.
Yeah. So actually, that's why I think sometimes friends don't talk about money, because sometimes even like as I'm sharing my beliefs about money out loud, I feel like I'm being judgmental and almost like, talking down upon somebody else's choice just because it's not the way I would make a decision. Right. And so I'm very conscious of that. And that sometimes even makes me not want to talk about money around someone else who's not like-minded. So it's like, I'll be really open with you, Mike, because I know we have similar views. And I mean, your car is like super duper old. So when I tell stories about people driving fancy cars, like I know you get it and you feel the same way. And like, you don't prioritize having a nice car. And you have way more money in the bank than other people do. And so anyways, I just think I think the idea of like not wanting to offend and judge and everything else is one of the reasons that people don't talk about money. Mm-hmm. And it stops me even from sort of sharing a really honest view about how I think. But I'll tie it all back to the Mad Fientist's quote of like, I'd rather be rich than look rich. And I feel that way. Like, I don't care what someone else thinks about the car I drive. Yes, every now and then I find myself caring when I pull up next to someone else and they have like a really fancy new car. And I'm like, oh, what do they think of me? And then I have to like really think about my values and what's important to me and think like, well, I don't really care. Like if they're going to judge me based on my car, and if they think I don't have a lot of money or make a lot of money, like that's their problem, because I know what I have and I'm confident in what I have and I'm confident in the choices I've made and the lifestyle I have and everything else. I got another random story, but feel free to cut in.
No, please go ahead.
Well, just one of my things when we were talking earlier about why friends don't talk about money more often that I was thinking about is when I do get together with my friends, one thing is we've all got like young kids. And so half the time it's just hard to carry on any conversation. So half the reason we don't always have meaningful conversations is because we can't hold up a conversation without being interrupted. So we just quit trying. But when we do have conversations, one of the things we spend a decent amount of time talking about is complaining about our jobs. Just that we're stressed, working too much, whatever it might be. But I just put it in the category of generally complaining about our jobs. What's ironic about that is if we were living our lives in a certain way and by many of the principles that many people in the kind of, quote, FIRE movement do, we wouldn't have to complain about our jobs because we would have the confidence and the financial freedom to know that we could leave that job at any point and be okay, right? And so I just think there's some like irony in there that the very thing that we spend time complaining about when we do get together with our friends, if we flip the conversation and we're like, hey, let's talk about the thing that could make us all better and not be tied to this job in a few years, it would just be like a much more meaningful conversation.
Yeah, I think you're right. And what people really...
What did you say?
I think you're right.
Oh, okay. Just wanted to hear that again.
I mean, off topic, but right. But bringing this back to the topic of our conversation today, finding ways to improve your finances, I think there's a very significant knowledge gap. So like these things are really complicated. People probably don't talk about personal finances much because one, they're embarrassed that they don't know about it as much. They're not as knowledgeable. They don't have an expertise. They may not even know what they are missing to talk about it. And I find this comes up pretty frequently when I'm at work talking about benefits. And so everybody comes to me with questions about their financial benefits. So like 401k, HSA, all these different things, what their paychecks mean because I'm in finance, even though I'm decoding their paychecks. Technically
your job, yeah.
Yeah, decoding their paychecks, not my job, but I'm in finance, that organization that does that, so they come to me. And people don't even know about the tools available to them. They don't understand how these things work. And so if people have the invitation to talk about it, if you encourage them to talk about it, if you educate them as to what they're missing, then I think people are much more open to discussing it. But it's not a topic that very easily comes out organically. And so like you really do need to be deliberate in when you're talking about your, how money works and how your personal finances operate. It's not like spending where everybody understands how spending works. Everybody understands how car leases work. And so you can share that conversation with people because everybody has the same level of knowledge. But to get any deeper, there's really a knowledge gap that people have. And it's one of the things I hope to help with on this show is start explaining some of the more technical aspects of financial independence in a way that makes sense to people.
Yeah, I'm excited. I also think sometimes people don't know there's another way. Like, I don't know a better way to say that, but I think people, and I know some friends where I, know a little bit about their finances, and I think they, are living paycheck to paycheck or sometimes stressed about money, but I don't think they think there's another way. And I think what I think is really cool about just the idea of financial independence and this movement, and you've said it before, Mike, is this isn't just for people that make a bunch of money, and this could be for anyone at any income level. And when you hear some of the FIRE stories that are out there, it's everything from two school teachers to, two software engineers. And they've, just lived their life in a way where they've made trade-offs and decided what's important and what their priorities are. And they, as a result, have been able to achieve financial independence or are on their journey to achieving financial independence. And so I know for one of the things that I think many people that I know at least don't realize is that there is another way. There's a different way to live their life that is a little bit different than the norm and different than the average. And I actually, talking about just sort of friends and the topic of money, I think there's many things about the way that we're both living our lives that at times can even be isolating. Maybe isolating is not the right word, but it's different than what the average person is doing. And so, they talk about this in the book and the documentary Playing with Fire, actually. Just that there's times where they want to go do the couple that wrote that book, or that documentary is sort of following and that wrote it, that they want to go do things that are more frugal, and they're constantly faced with their friends that want to go to a really fancy restaurant and order these really expensive bottles of wine and other things. And they actually came out with these stickers that say like "Frugal Friends Unite," that I thought was kind of cute. Or just around the idea of like, once you start talking about topics like this, you could have a conscious discussion with your friends on like different social things you want to do that maybe don't cost as much money and that are a little bit more just frugal and free in many cases. Yeah. I, again, don't remember what we started talking about.
Well,
if I'm being honest,
it doesn't matter because I'll make a follow-up point and then you can think about your comments. So that's an interesting comment about being a little isolated. And I think that's a result of the normalization of like a hyper consumerism culture. So people believe that having a, $500 a month car lease is normal. People believe that going out and spending $100 per person for dinner, I guess that's what people do. I don't know. I've never done that.
Never? We'll come back to that.
Yeah, I think I've done it like twice. So this becomes normal. And so if that's not the lifestyle you live, if that's not where you want to be, then I think it does become kind of isolating, and it makes it really hard to have a conversation with people because you see everybody pull up in an expensive car and you're not driving one. That's very isolating. But it's not normal to spend, 50% of your income on a car. That's not normal. It's not normal to go spend a few $100s on dinner. Like that is very abnormal. And so I think the more people talk about it and the more they find out that they might have the same level of discomfort with some of these things, it kind of snowballs and people become more and more comfortable and they become more and more open and more knowledgeable about how all this stuff works.
Yeah, that's a great point. I will also say, I think everything is relative. So if you already have enough saved that you could retire now and you've fully funded your kids' college funds and paid off your house and you pay cash for cars and everything else, and you are really into food and you want to go spend a few $100s on dinner, I think that's great. And like, more power to you if you can afford it and if it is aligned with your goals and your priorities. I think where it's tough and where I personally am very sort of interested and motivated to want to help people with is when you can't afford it and you're making decisions like that, right? And when you, again, so I think it's worth separating, like when you can afford it, it's totally different. When you can't afford those things and you don't have an emergency fund and you're not fully funding your 401k and a bunch of other things that we can get into over time in terms of kind of where your money should go first, that's when it's sort of upsetting when someone's spending $300 on dinner or even $100 on dinner.
And how do you think people can determine whether they're at the point where they can afford it or not?
I think that's a good question. That's actually like a better question for you to answer in a lot of ways, just because I feel like you're better on that side of things.
But you'll still keep talking.
But I'll try. What was the question again?
How do people know when they are at the point where they can afford something?
I think now this isn't everyone over time. I think there's different adjustments to this, but in an ideal state, if you can pay cash for it and you've already done some of the basic things that you need to do to secure your future, then I think it's okay. So, and to me, some of those things, and we'll do a whole episode on this and get into more details, but some of those things are like, you have an emergency fund, you are funding your kids' college funds, you've got all your debt paid off, maybe minus your house, but I would argue even your house is debt. So to me, it is a very personal decision in a lot of ways. What would your answer to that be?
I think you'd have to break it out between short-term and long-term. So I think a lot of people can afford to do something occasionally short-term. Whether or not they can afford to make it part of their lifestyle depends on their long-term plans and if they are on track to achieve whatever financial goals they've set out. But it's a very difficult if the question is, when can you afford to do something, that's super complicated. And I don't think there's really a good answer. And so I think this is also what people struggle with. So if you're saying, when can I afford to go on this type of vacation? There really isn't a good answer for it. And that's where people maybe kind of, get closed off a little bit and don't want to discuss it, because if there really isn't a good answer, then people who aren't good with money certainly can't explain it or articulate why they are or are not ready to make a certain expense. And so I see this as another reason why friends don't talk about money, because everybody's going to be at a different point of whether they can afford something or whether they think they can afford something. And that would just be reason for them to be closed off.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, it's when we were talking earlier just around the idea of me even fearing that some of my comments, when I use examples of like friends or people I've observed, that it comes across as super judgmental or just judgy. I think judgy means the same as judgmental. But I fear that some of those comments come across that way, as if I'm, like doing something in some amazing way and criticizing, somebody else is doing just because it's different than the way I'm doing it. Which again, I think is at the root of why people don't talk about money more. But that doesn't mean that we can't get past that and that we can't have open, honest discussions about money, which again is the purpose of why we're even doing this podcast.
So I think the real reason people don't talk about money is because Maggie's constantly judging them about it.
Exactly. Quick side story. When we were talking about things being isolating, just when we were talking about the idea of living a more frugal lifestyle and one focused on getting to a place of financial independence and staying in that place. My husband and I were just in Palm Springs for a few days on vacation without our kids. It was lovely. And we were walking down the main street in Palm Springs. We had never been before. And so we're staying at this Airbnb that's just kind of right off the main drag a little bit. And so we were like, oh, let's go for a walk. There's lots of really cute shops in Palm Springs and very kind of vintage 50s, 60s furniture and artwork and cool stuff. And we were just commenting and noticing that every single store front, whether a restaurant, a business, a retail store, whatever it might be, an art gallery, on that entire street, we were walking for miles round trip. That entire street was designed for us to spend money and for us to walk into a store, want something that we don't necessarily need, but that we all of a sudden have this craving for now, and put down money to get it. And we just want to go for a walk, right? And kind of check out the city. And we're it's hard to check out the city without constantly feeling pressured to buy something, And so it's we were even having this discussion while we were walking, and we were we're just going to walk in stores and look at stuff. I think we bought a Christmas ornament, which we buy in every city we go to.
So you fell victim to it.
Well, no, I do that. That's my goal. The one thing I will buy in every city is a Christmas ornament. And I love it because when we decorate our tree every year, we reminisce about all of our travels. And we bought it doesn't matter. We bought one other little thing.
No. I'd like to hear what you bought.
It was just a keychain for my mom because she has
How much was this keychain?
It's $6.
Was it gold plated?
No, it was a cool Palm Springs keychain. She loved it.
Okay, good.
Also, she was helping to watch our kids while we were gone. So
and all you got her was a keychain?
Well, she has a keychain collection. That's all she wants. She's actually kind of a budding minimalist herself. And
except for her keychain.
She jokes that she has this one tote box full of keychains from all of her travels, and then her 2 kids' travels. We always bring her back a keychain. And she's always joking. She's like, this is the one thing I'm going to leave y'all when I die is this bucket of keychains. We're like, thanks, Mom.
should be worth a lot of money.
I know, yeah. Anyways, when we were talking about it being isolating, we were just commenting that it's hard to go out and do things in the world and not spend money. It takes a little bit more energy and forethought and discipline to go out and experience the world, because everything around us is designed to get us to spend money on something, whether it be food, drinks, stuff, artwork, anything. So just another story. I don't remember my point.
Yeah, but it normalizes the spending behavior. But when you walk down the street, there aren't signs on every store talking about how you can maximize your your taxes and plan for retirement. And so
there wasn't like a 401k storefront.
Exactly.
Like, are you fully matching your 401k?
If there was, I'd go in and buy.
Have you maxed out your 401k? Yeah, there was no billboard for like, have you maxed out your 401k this year?
I feel like this could be another business opportunity for us, like a 401k storefront, and we sell 401k merch.
Yeah.
Let's put this on the back.
We sell
back burner.
personal finance t-shirts. It's going to be a big hit.
Yeah.
Let's quit our jobs and start this business now.
Yeah, we'll dip our toe into this 401k merch and see how it goes. How do we close this one out?
So we're going to take phone calls from people, right?
Yeah.
So if people want to, I'll look up the number, honestly.
So people can call into this phone number, ask us questions. They can do so anonymously. If they don't even have to give their name if they don't want to.
Yeah.
But we'll play the recording back and answer the questions.
Or if you want to leave like your name and any information about yourself, or like a website if you have one, we'll definitely play it on the air. So anytime you can call us at 404-981-3370 and leave us a question, comment, or a tip, and we will play it on the air for everyone to hear. And if it's a question, we'll answer it. And if it's a comment or tip, we will just play it on the air so everybody can benefit from your thoughts. So we would love to hear from you. And in the spirit of friends talking about money, we hope that you will, never mind, that was going to sound lame. I was going to say, we hope that you'll be our friend too. It sounds like Mr. Rogers. Won't you be my neighbor?
Yeah. How isolated are you, Maggie? Are you doing this just so you can make new friends from the internet?
I'm not that isolated.
But yeah, we would like to hear from people because, we are now at risk of living inside this fire bubble and only talking to ourselves and only talking to like-minded people and consuming like-minded information. And so it's important that we hear from other people and hear what's going on and make the show relevant for you guys.
Yeah. And we want to, like, one of the premises or sort of like key foundations or key principles that we would like to encourage is just radical honesty, right? Radical candor is like someone else. Candor. Radical candor.
Candor, I think, is a planet in Star Wars.
So yeah, we want to practice radical
candor.
We want to practice radical candor. And really, like, if you have thoughts, if you're challenging our thoughts, if you have questions, like, be vulnerable with us. We will not judge. And we just want to, encourage more open conversations about money and personal finance, all in the aim of creating more freedom in your life and allowing you to focus on and achieve your goals and your passions.
All right. With that, we hope to hear from you guys, and we'll be back with another hopefully interesting topic.
Yeah. Soon.
Later.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right. Bye.
Bye.